Hi everyone, and welcome to day 2 of JavaScript. So in day 1, we learned about conditional statements, creating variables, and for loops. And we're just going to start off by reviewing some of it and extending off of it. And then at the end, we're going to create a dark mode function. So let's start with the if statement. It always starts with the keyword if, and then some brackets here. And inside these brackets is the condition. So we can say if 2 is equal, remember to put 2 equal signs. If 2 is equal to 2, then everything under it, so everything in these curly brackets will be executed. So you can say console.log true. So everyone should have these curly brackets on the computer. Although it actually took me a while to figure this out, so I actually went to Google every time and just tried to copy that in, which took me a lot of time and pretty stupid now that I realized it. But yeah, everyone has this on their computer. So we can run it, and it's going to say true because 2 does equal to 2. And another operator would be if 2 does not equal to 2. So instead of equals, you put exclamation mark equals 2. So if 2 does not equal 2. And that's obviously false, so it won't return true. And nothing is returned. And then we have the else. So if the if statement is false, which it is, then it's going to move on to the else statement. And the else statement has no condition because it's already specified on top, just the opposite of this if statement. So now it's going to print false. Sorry, yeah, false. And yeah, now it prints false because 2 does not equal to 2. So that's just a review of the if statements. And now let's review some for loops. The keyword is always for, and just like the if statement, we put some brackets. And then, so in day 1, I mentioned that for loops are for repeating things. And you might wonder, what's the point of defining a variable called I? Then checking if I is less than or equal to or a 5 or any number you want, and then adding it by 1. Like, what's the point of doing that? Why isn't there a command called repeat? Just repeat 5. So, well, the answer for that is because we can actually use this I variable. For example, we can print console.log I. So now every time it loops, it's going to print the value of I. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's because it starts at 0. This is the starting value. Then it checks if 0 is less than or equal to 5. If it is, then it does whatever is inside this for loop. Then once it's finished, it's going to do increase by 1. Check if it's less than 5. Do whatever it's in here, increase by 1. And just keep doing that until it is more than 5. And then if it's more than 5, then it's not going to do here. So if it's 6, then it's not going to print 6 here. That's why there's no 6. It goes up to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the review of the for loop. And now we can get into some new things. So we're going to start with something called functions. So to define a function, we would just use the function keyword. And just like everything else, we put brackets and curly brackets underneath. Although we have to define this function, so we can call it whatever we want. We can say function eat. And then inside this function, we can do console.log munch munch or something like that. Although if we run it right now, you can see it's not going to be printed in the console. And that's because we have to call this function in order for it to actually run. So to call it, we just do the function name, brackets, and it's good practice just to put a semicolon here, just to show that that line ended. And you can see it's being called munch munch. And if we put it underneath a function, then you can see it still works. So whether it's above or underneath a function, it'll work. And now let's look at function parameters. So we have function name, and then these parameters will be put inside the circle brackets. And parameters are passed through the brackets when the function is called, and they're separated by commas. And if the brackets are empty, that means there are no parameters to be passed in. So let's look at an example here. We can say eat, and then let's make the parameter, let's name the parameter method. And then we can use the if statement here. If method is equal to equal, so put 2. If method is equal to, let's say, munch, then everything under munch will be run. And we can also say if method is equal to chew, then it's going to print chew. So right now, if we run this, we're actually going to get an error, or no error actually. I guess it'll let us pass in no parameters. But a parameter is required here. So when we're calling the function eat, we can pass in a parameter, and let's say we can pass in munch. Don't know why I never remember to put that in. And then you can see it does munch munch right here. That's because we call the function and it passes in munch, and then it sets the method equal to munch. So now if the method is equal to munch, then it's going to do whatever is in here, which is console.log munch munch. And let's try to pass in chew. It's going to do the same thing. If method equals to chew, then just print whatever's inside here. But what if we don't put semicolons in here? What if we just put chew? Then you can see there's a reference error because chew is not defined. And that's because chew does not equal chew. So these are called data types, and chew is a string. With quotation marks, that's a string. And without quotation marks, the code reads it as a variable. So that's why it says chew is not defined, because it thinks that this is a variable. And to make it a string, we just have to put quotation marks here, and that'll work. So those are function parameters. And I've explained strings. So strings are just basically text. And how do you put two strings together? So that's this right here. We can say let x equals string 1 and let y equals string 2. And you can say let z equals x dot concat y. And that just combines string 1 and string 2. So I'm going to delete this. We can say let x equals to hi. Let y equals to John. We can say let z equals to x dot concat y. And we can print out z, so we can see the value of z. And now we should print out x combined with y. Oh, never mind. I think I spelled that wrong. Yeah, there's no c here. Okay, now it says hi John, because z is x and y combined. But now let's say we wanted now let's say we wanted a variable here. We wanted the person to input the variable. What we would do here is actually start combining JavaScript with HTML. So if you haven't watched my past videos with HTML in the web development course, you can watch that. I'll put it in the comments. So let's say we wanted the person's name. Then we just put an input in the HTML file. Say type equals to text. And now you should see this thing shows up on the screen. And it's giving us an error right now because I didn't define y yet. So now let's say let y equals to, and this is where the cool thing starts. It's where you can actually combine JavaScript with HTML and get the user input, and then just print out something like hi s to the. So let y equals, and we start with a keyword called document dot get element, or actually query selector works better. Document.query selector. And we can say input. So it's going to get the input tag. And then it's going to y is equal to document.query selector input dot value. So we want to get the value of this. And now we can say this, but it's equal to the value of this. But as you can see, when we run it, the value is nothing right now. So we have to wait for it to actually be entered. So input type equals text. And then we can give the value of the input as John. So now we have the value John. And I'm going to switch to query selector right now. Now it's going to print hi object HTML input element. That's because we forgot to put dot value here because we need the value. And now it says hi John. Now, and then soon we can get into the user actually entering the value. But this is what we have so far. Value equals to John. And now we can also have the string length property. So we can say console.log z.length. And that's just going to give us how many characters are here. That's 6. So hi John has 6 characters, not including the space. So that's the length property. And then we can do lower to uppercase. We can say z.to uppercase. Hi John, you can see it's all uppercase. And oh, never mind. The dot length does include the space. So if there's a space in it, it'll count that as a character. We can say to uppercase. Then we can say to lowercase. You can say that's all lowercase now. And these are substrings. So let's start with commenting this out just to make it more neater. And we can say console.log hi John. Okay, console.log x, and then it says right here to do x.substring, and then you just put the characters you want over here. So you can put 1 and 5. So you just want the first character and the 5th character. Oh, I'm just going to comment this out. So you can see that it's not giving us the first character. It's not giving us H. That's because everything in strings and arrays, the first character always starts at 0, and the second character is 1. So that's why it's giving us I right now. So now let's get into arrays. We spent a long time on strings. So arrays, we can just give the array name. Arrays are always defined by square brackets right here. And we can, it's just a list of things. So we can put 2, 4, 5, 6, 3, and we can even put a string here as then hi. So you can see nothing's going to be printed out because I didn't print anything here. So what if we wanted to just only have, actually before we do that, what if we wanted to print out the array? We could just do console.log array and it'll print this out. But what if we only wanted to have the first number in the array? Then we would just do console.log array 0, because again, the first character in everything is always 0. So that's called the index. And that gives us 2. So 2 has an index of 0. The next number, 4, has an index of 1. And we just select them like this. We can say the third number has an index of 2. Yeah, and that gives us 5. So we can actually combine arrays with for loops and see what happens. For I is equal to 0, and then I is more than 5, I is less than 5, and then I plus plus. So now it's going to say it's going to loop 5 times because it starts at 0 right now, and it's going to do console.log array I. So I is going to be the index right now. So the first time it loops, I is going to be 0. That means the index is 0, and it's going to select the first element in this array. Then second time it loops is going to be 1, select the second element, and yeah, it's just going to loop through the array like this. Just says all the numbers. However, you can see it's actually missing high right now, and that's because we only loop through 5 times, and the array has 6 characters, but who actually wants to count how many characters your array has? So we could just use array.length property. So now it's going to loop for the length of the array. Now, no matter what we put, it's going to print the entire array. You can add this. Now it's going to print the entire array, just selecting it by the index. So again, the first 2 has an index of 1, 4 has an index of 2, and these are just the indexes. Okay, now let's do one final thing. So these are arrays. Now let's try to make this theme work better. John, what if we wanted an actual user input instead of just setting the value over here? We could actually start getting into buttons. We could say button. That gives us a button tag, and then we can say submit. And then over here, we can actually call a function in HTML too. So we want to call a function, and we just do onClick. And then we can put the function name here. I didn't define this function yet, but I will soon. You can put print name. So that's the function name I'm going to make, which basically means if you click on this button, it's going to play this function right here. Now we can say print name. I'm going to comment this out. Print name, that's a function. And now we can just kind of print the name here. So you can pause the video and just find out how you're going to print hi and then the user input here in the console. So how are you going to do that? So what we would do is we could use the document .query selector. And then we could get the value of the input tag. So this selects the tag. Then we can say .value. And we can store this inside a variable. Let name equals to the value of this input box. Then we can say console.log height, and then we can do plus if we want to add a variable to the string. Height and then name. So now we can do John, press submit, and now it says hi John. And of course we can always put a space here just to make it more. Hi random guy who's still watching the video. Amazed you even made it this far. Okay, press submit and hi random guy, yeah. So that's the end of this video. And yeah, we learned functions, we covered arrays, indexes, and strings. So for the next video, we're going to start using this, and we're going to make a dark mode button where we're going to click it, and the screen is going to, we're going to have dark mode.